Thank you so much for joining us on Glutathione Authority for another week. I really appreciate you guys taking the time to listen to all of the amazing wisdom and knowledge that we have to share with you guys. So I'd like to welcome Mr. Alan Ogden, the Glutathione Authority, live in my kitchen.
Thank you.
He has a degree in pharmacology, geriatric medicine, energy medicine, which in my mind is the most important, and 4 nutritional degrees. So he is, and then on top of that, more than 40 years of experience in the industry as well. But he doesn't remotely look like it. Not even remotely. He's totally Benjamin Button. He's aging backwards.
Right.
So thank you so much for joining me in my kitchen.
That's really cool. I love doing these events, and I love doing them with you. And it's great to be in your kitchen. She mentioned that she loves energy medicine, and that's true. I have seen Harmony in the last 2.5 years really, I'm going to say, challenge herself. And she took pranic healing, she took emotion code, body code, and did really, really well at them. And as a matter of fact, she's never said this, but I'll say this. She actually made suggestions to the person who developed emotion code and body code on how his program could actually improve it. And she did that because she could see improvement in her clients and with some of the techniques that she was applying that he hadn't taught in that program. And she also did hypnotherapy. And she continues to educate herself. And not only that, you have really, really done an excellent job with Glutathione Authority on posting every day, multiple posts, answering people's posts, answering their questions. They think it's me, they thank me. It's really awesome. So
yeah, I'm totally happy for him to get the credit.
Yeah, we're going here. So today we want to talk about burden of proof. And I really want to take this apart for you people who are actually taking a natural product to your doctor and either getting a blank stare back at him, from him or her, or sometimes without even doing it. This is what happened to a person the other day, and this is why I want to do this. They took one of these products, doesn't matter which one, they took one of these products into their family physician, showed the physician, and without even looking at it, the physician said, well, I wouldn't take that, and gave it back. So no idea what it was, no idea what it was for, just this opinion. And so I don't know if you know, but there was a study done in California a number of years ago, and it's called the white coat study. And literally what it was, they took fake patients, so they actually put patients in different hospitals, and then they would have a doctor who didn't even have prescribing rights at that hospital phone the nursing station and say, hi, I'm Dr. So-and-so. And it wasn't a doctor, it was just an actor, but hey, I'm Dr. So-and-so. Do you have a patient there by the name of Alan Ogden? Yes, we do. Would you give him? And they would prescribe a lethal dose of some medicine. These were all planted. And so then in 85%, get this, 85% of the cases, they actually had to have someone stop the person who had taken that order from this doctor without checking the doctor, without checking any of the credentials, but because they had introduced themselves as a doctor, because they had phoned the hospital, introduced themselves, named the patient, 85% of the time, that person would have received a lethal dose of medication. And so there is this thing where we feel so, I'm going to say, unequal to the person who with the white coat. And they actually do call it the white coat syndrome. And so when we take something like this and we take it to someone who we trust and they do something like that with it, it really gives us a lot of confusion. First of all, we're emotionally confused because if we've used the product or had a family member use the product and got tremendous benefit from it, we want to share that, and we want to really affirm in the mind of our healthcare practitioner that's doing what it's doing. So I wanted to talk about burden of proof tonight. So burden of proof is something that you'll hear if you're ever around medical professionals. You'll hear them talk about the burden of proof. And so what that is that we have to actually provide a level of proof about a certain thing. like let's just take B vitamins. So one B vitamin. B vitamins, by the way, do not exist in nature as a single entity. They always exist as a complex. But in order to know the activity of each B vitamin, what burden of proof would say is that you would take that and isolate it. So first off, we take something, we isolate it, we take it out of its natural environment, we take it away from everything else, and we see what activity it has. And we do that at different dosage levels and so on and so forth, and we track this data, and that's why a lot of nutritional, particularly nutritional ingredients, will actually not show much activity, is because they're taken out of their natural environment, and they're put by themselves. So they don't have bioflavonoids, they don't have the supporting cast of things that they would in nature. So recently what has been decided to do is, instead of doing that, and where it really came into light was with the beta-carotenes for the eyes. So people would start taking beta-carotene for eyes, particularly lutein. And lutein, so what they did is they decided we've got to prove that lutein is actually the one that's having the effect on the eye. So they took it out of all of the other beta-carotenes. There's actually 17 in that complex. They took it out and they tried it, and lo and behold, it didn't really work. And that's because it required all of the luteins to be there. It required all of these beta-carotenes to be there so that lutein could actually have the activity that was being noticed. So nature really actually does know how to do things better. And so what we do in the drug world is we take something, and we can do this in the drug world. So we take something and we make it as an individual component to do an individual thing. And so then you can actually say, well, this thing is doing this. Now, what they never tell you after the fact is drugs are not specific. So the drug you're taking for your headache is ultimately non-specific. As for instance, if you're taking a non-steroidal anti-inflammatory, that's Advil, Motrin, if you're taking that regularly, while you're doing that, it's actually forming webs in your intestinal tract that is diminishing your body's ability to absorb proteins. And it's having all sorts of damaging effects there. So it's doing other things in your body while it's getting rid of your headache. And in depleting nutrition and not allowing nutrition into your body, you actually exacerbate the headache, you get more pain, you get an inflammatory response, you get more pain, so then you take more Motrin. So you can see this cycle that goes on. But in drugs...
Hold on a second. What you were talking about, I realized after, oh my God, I think it was 1.5 years of consistently taking ibuprofen as a result of having, pain from my concussion, as a result of something that was on the news, that ibuprofen is directly correlated to dissolving of the bones.
Yeah.
And I was like, perfect.
In the pharmaceutical world, actually, ibuprofen is called a gateway drug. And
that is so funny, because when I was talking to my doctor about it, because he was trying to convince me to take it, I was like, there's side effects to this. I saw it on the news. I've researched it. I've ended up realizing that this isn't good for me. He's like, no, there's no side effects.
Really?
There are no side effects. It is literally just hitting the reset button so that you can go on about your life. You don't have to worry about it at all. You can take it as much as you want. He literally said there are no side effects.
Wow.
Again, if I didn't know any better and understood
just
that...
I'm trying to swallow.
Well, you're talking about white coat syndrome.
Yes.
This man who went to school for 10 years was telling me, using his authority, a lie.
Yeah. It's actually a gateway drug. So just so you know what a gateway drug is, a gateway drug is a drug that is going to open up the doors to more and more types of drugs. So if you start on one drug, it's going to do a particular job for a little while, but because it's going to essentially increase the symptoms, not decrease the symptoms, it's going to increase the symptoms, it's going to increase inflammation, it's going to, as Harmony was saying, it's going to maybe damage your bones or whatever, then you're going to need other drugs. It's actually, that's an actual thing. It's called a gateway drug. And I'm not against drugs. I was a pharmacist. I'm not against drugs when they're used properly and for the periods of time which they're supposed to be used. When they're used to treat chronic illness, that's when we get into the problems, because drugs were never really designed for chronic illness. They were designed for a temporary situation in your body and to allow your body a little bit of space to maybe reset, like you said, or for you to reset yourself so you could actually heal, because our body is meant to heal. But in drugs, we can do burden of proof. Now, they do burden of proof studies. So what they do is they'll choose a particular thing, like a headache. So where's the pain coming from? How does your brain know that your toe hurts? How does your head hurt? Where's that pain coming from? And there's pathways. There's a COX-2 pathway. There's other pathways in the body. And so what they'll find, of course, is they'll find an instigator. It's always a protein, an instigator protein. Oh, that's the one that's causing the inflammation. That's the one that's sending the message or causing the neurotransmitter to send a message back to the brain saying pain, pain, pain. So if we block that from doing that, then we've resolved the issue.
Yeah.
So they will design something specifically to block that transmission of information. But once again, drugs are not that specific in our body. So it not only blocks that information, it's going to block other information. And so what happens when we take, so when they do burden of proof studies, they have to prove that if they say this drug is going to do this in the body, that's all they have to prove. They have to prove it does that, and then they don't have to prove anything else. Once in a while we get a side effect from a drug, like Viagra, which was, first of all, for cardiovascular disease, but they found out it had another more important purpose or more marketable purpose, or Rogaine, which was to be used originally as an antibiotic, and then it found out that you could actually grow hair, so they started marketing it for growing hair. So that shows you how non-specific drugs are, but burden of proof only requires you to prove that what you said you wanted this drug to do, it actually does that, and it doesn't require you to eliminate or disprove any other thing. Now, drugs have to go through safety trials, I will tell you that. So safety trials they're like dosage requirements. So there's a dosage range in which this drug is allowed to be given in your body, and ultimately that's the range in which it will ease the symptom without really showing immediate damage to your body. So if we do have a drug that shows immediate damage, it gets off the list. If we have a drug that in mice or rodent tissue studies causes cancer at any dosage level, actually it cannot be produced in North America any longer. And that's the same with a lot of nutritional things, by the way. If they're tested and they cause any kind of untoward growth in animal studies, then they can be taken off the market immediately. So that's been around since the 1980s. But so when it comes to drugs, burden of proof is really easy. We say it does this, it does that, because we made it to do that. And we made it to do that, and it does that in these particular dosages. If you need a little stronger, you can give a little more. Where burden of proof really falls apart is in multi-drug scenarios, because there's no studies done when you have a multitude of symptoms and you give a multitude of drugs. There's literally no studies ever done on those types of protocols and the long-term effects of that. So, when your doctor is talking to you about a nutritional product and asking for burden of proof, if you're on some medications, you might want to ask him or her for the burden of proof that the 5 or 6 medications that they're asking you to take actually work together and work together really, really well. And they can't show you any studies because they don't exist. So once again, I'm not against drugs. I think they're great. Drugs have saved a lot of lives. But there's also, because of overuse and because of over-reliance on what they do, they're now causing a lot of health problems. So along comes the nutrition industry. And when we talk to the medical industry, because they're used to this idea of burden of proof, when you say that this particular thing optimizes glutathione, well, they want burden. They say, well, show me the proof. Now, we know that the amino acids that are in that particular product have been shown over and over again to increase cellular levels and intracellular levels of glutathione. But one of the reasons a lot of studies don't exist on natural products is natural products are like the open market. So somebody asked me last night if I had any particular studies on collagen protein and its effect in rheumatoid arthritis. Those studies rarely exist. And the reason for that is if you're a manufacturer of hydrolyzed collagen protein, or if you're a seller, if you're buying hydrolyzed collagen protein and reselling it, if somebody actually went to the trouble of doing a study, you can't really keep that study to yourself. So you put that study out into the market. Now anybody who sells that product, because it's a natural product, can make that claim. So unless you can do something really specific and really, really attributable just to what it is that your product does, and can get what's called a per use patent, everybody can use your information. So that's why there's not a lot of studies that are done on nutritional products. So we have to look at the general population. So let's look at the general population just as a burden of proof statistic for how well drugs are working. In Japan, the average person spends $3,300 a year on medication and $3,200 a year on food. Actually, medication and health insurance. So $3,300 a year on health-related, that could be just health-related things. So that's not all just medication. That can be supplements, etc. So the average is $3,300 a year, and they spend $3,200 on food. In the United States, the average person, the average household spends $8,200 on medications and $2,200 on food. So there's a real imbalance. So you can see how we in North America have really bought into the idea that there's a pill for every ill, and we really don't have to take care of ourselves. $2,200 per year per person is not a lot of food, and I don't imagine that there's not much good food. Like that doesn't even seem hardly. Like,
well, if you
I
think about
food
it,
for
it completely makes sense because obviously the Japanese are eating, significantly healthier, and the Americans, the North Americans essentially are eating, they're buying their food at Walmart and stuff, and most of the food that they're eating is potato chips and like cheaper stuff that's produced, and so it's lower cost.
Yeah, well, yeah, people. And if
you're eating lower cost foods that are, produced and in bags and chemicals and sugar and all the rest of that, then you're going to end up with all sorts of health issues, which is going to put you in a situation where you're going to have to spend a lot more money on your pharmaceuticals. So it's a win-win for the pharmaceutical companies.
Yeah. So if we just look at this, America is the most medicated country in the world. It's number 35 out of 35.
They're number one in everything.
They're number one in everything. This time they're number one. They're 35 out of 35. They're 35th. Most medicated country in the world with the most illnesses. So regardless of all the research, putting it all aside and not diluting the greatness of medicine and its ability to bring people literally back from the dead in a trauma situation and so on, and the tremendous amount of advances in surgery that have happened. And recently we had a very big tragedy here in Canada. Many more of those folks would have not survived had it not been for the trauma care people, the drugs, the surgeries, etc. that they performed. So not to belittle that. I'm talking about chronic illness. I'm talking about the long-term effect of things. And if we look at that, we can see that America, when I say America, I'm including Canada in that. So that just goes without saying. We're including Canada in that because we're virtually the same type of medical system. It's not working. What we're doing is not working. Our reliance on medication, regardless of how much proof the medical profession is demanding, or no matter how much proof that the pharmaceutical companies are providing that their drugs do the specific thing that they say, it's all the other things that they're not telling us, not showing us, that's what's causing the problems. And they're causing big problems because we now can have people live many, many years. Their heart won't give out because we can keep their heart beating. We can keep them breathing. We can give them all sorts of drugs to keep them alive, but they're not here. Their mind is gone. They have dementia for 15 years or 20 years. So what is that? Is that there's no quality of life? So we've mastered the ability to, and I really don't like this term, but I'm going to use it because I think this is the proper place to use it. We've mastered the ability to biohack our body when ultimately it should be probably not hanging around. We've been able to biohack it with drugs, and we can keep the organism alive but not really living. And so one of the goals of natural medicine and functional medicine, and I love the idea that now we have functional medicine coming, because one of the goals of functional medicine is to look at the person as a whole and to look at their energy, look at the energy that they're putting out and where their energy is, where their energy blocks are, to look at their biome. And their biome is literally, that over 90% of critical information, including our immune system, is actually carried in the bacteria that's on our skin, that's in our scalp, that's in our intestinal tract. 90% of our genetic information and 99% of our immune system is actually carried in the biome, the flora, in either the flora of the gut, or they're now calling that a holodiome. This cloud around us. If you remember Pigpen years ago, the guy with the cloud around him.
Yeah.
We're kind of like that, right? We have this cloud of bacteria around us, but that cloud of bacteria is carrying vital information about who we are as a species and how we do things. And all these things that we're doing are interrupting that very, very integral communication system and interrupting the transfer of information from the genetic material in our biome to our body. And so functional medicine is now looking at that, and instead of taking things out of their natural state, they're looking and saying, and one of the biggest studies, this is so great, because I remember back when I first got into pharmacy, vitamin E was all the rage, and vitamin E was tested in Toronto, was clinically proven that if you took vitamin E, it was one of the best anticoagulant medications you could take. And as soon as that came out into the marketplace, it was a dramatic failure. And it was a dramatic failure for some of the reasons Harmony mentioned. First of all, people don't like to spend money on something. They're going to go buy the cheapest supplement they can. And immediately manufacturers started making synthetic vitamin E. They started making it really cheap, inexpensive, and it didn't work. Because the stuff that they used in the clinical trials that worked was natural vitamin E. It contained 7 tocopherols at a minimum, 7 tocopherols in a ratio, and that ratio of tocopherols was actually what had allowed the vitamin E to do what it did in the body.
It wasn't an isolate.
It wasn't isolate.
One of the 7 of vitamin E's.
Right.
Because nature, if you look at, a lettuce, how many different vitamins and nutrients are actually in that.
Yeah.
Right? The phytonutrients and everything. There's just so much going on in that head of lettuce. And the labs and the scientists are essentially trying to take one tiny little element out of it and then put it in a pill, and it's supposed to give us all of the benefits that this amazing head of lettuce does. And it makes absolutely no sense. And of course, if you take the synthetic, it's not going to really have any of those properties, because they're trying to take something that's similar to it and then make a cheaper version, but you're not going to get the same result.
No. So it's so amazing to me. What's amazing to me is, when it comes to dealing with our health and all that kind of stuff, we start to shop. So when I first started dealing with glutathione, for instance, and I understood that there was a way to optimize your glutathione that costs $350 a day, minimum $350 a day to optimize your glutathione, and you kind of, you multiply that, that's over $100 a month to optimize my glutathione, but yet it saved my life. So really, it was kind of a good investment, if you want. But when I started to talk to people about glutathione, the very first thing they would do is they would look for the cheapest thing on the market. So here's something that was clinically proven, actually had burden of proof along with it, that it did what it said it would do. And you tell people about it, and their first reaction is they're going to go online, they're going to go to Amazon, they're going to go to Costco, they're going to go to Sam's Club, they're going to go somewhere, and they're going to try to find something that's the cheapest version that they can get in order to try to achieve that. And
Costco is the one that I was actually thinking of. Like, how many people, I'd love to see what Costco's actual sales are for nutritionals, because they sell the big, huge, massive bottles, right, of all the different brands and everything. And, you know, it's like $19.99 for like a big, huge bottle of this, of vitamin, whatever you want, right?
So let's think about that for a sec. I love that you brought that up. And I'm not, there's other people that sell big, huge jugs of stuff too. So we're not necessarily picking on Costco, but if you have something that's got 2,000 tablets in it for $19.99, how much is that per tablet?
If we say there's like in a big thing, there's probably 200 to 300 pills, right? In a big, huge container.
Yeah, it's cheap, right?
It is incredibly cheap.
It's like, it's not even a penny.
And the thing that's really interesting that I learned a number of years ago is that the government of Canada, they actually forced the nutritional companies to put what it is that's in the container, but there is absolutely no need to have any burden of proof that any of the stuff that's in the bottle works. Right. Yeah. That the body actually absorbs it and utilizes it.
Yeah, we're gonna talk about that in a sec. I just
sorry.
No, it's okay. It's okay. It's all good. You reminded me. But if you look at that, if you look at something and you can, let's say you buy something that's $9.99 for 100. Okay, so each capsule is like 9 cents. Now, there's a lot of distribution costs in that. So that capsule literally contains maybe 0.02 cents worth of ingredient. What can you buy for that? What can you expect of that? Really? Just
when you go to, if you think about it, if you go to the veg, you know, the produce section of your grocery store, there's absolutely no way. I mean, Wynn and I went to the grocery store today and we bought, let's just say, cucumbers. One cucumber was $1.50. One cucumber. Right. I know when I used to be able to get them for 99 cents and when they were even cheaper, but now it's $1.50 just for one cucumber. And I know that it's absolutely worth it to spend that money on that cucumber because I'm getting a lot of nutrients out of it. And yet for some reason when it comes to, and if you think about it, because when it comes to holistic health, we really do try to get all of our vitamins and nutrients out of our food. And so we're willing to spend good money on those peppers that cost like $4 per pepper or $5 per pepper. And asparagus, don't even get me started, right? Like real produce is really expensive. Yeah. But we know the benefits of getting the produce into our food, so we spend the money on it to be healthy. But on top of that, we also understand that there are certain vitamins and nutrients and minerals that we cannot get out of our food.
Well, you can't eat enough food to get.
Well, that's exactly it. So we know that we're gonna have to supplement. So why are we not having the equal mindset to our nutritionals as we do to the food when we go into the produce section to pick out good quality organic food to put into our food? We should be thinking, okay, I want the best of the best to supplement my intake of my, cucumbers and my broccoli, because I can't eat 50 pounds of broccoli to get enough amino acids to turn into glutathione in my system. So I'm going to supplement, I'm going to take the immunity so that I can get what I need, but I need to make sure that the amino acids that are in there are actually going to convert into glutathione in my system. Otherwise, am I not wasting my money?
Yeah, so here's the challenge that we have in the nutritional world is that the consumer wants inexpensive, and inexpensive leads to ineffective. I just want you to know, inexpensive leads to ineffective. You're wasting your money. As a matter of fact, there's a really good study. It was published in Newsweek magazine, and it said 72% of the supplements that are on the market are not effective. They're not worth anything.
Oh, so, just like the information on the internet?
Yeah.
70% of the information on the internet is false?
Yeah. So they just went and rounded up supplements from all sorts of stores. They took them back, and like you said, there's no requirement for a manufacturer to make their product bioavailable. So 72% of the supplements. So how do you choose supplements? Where does the burden of proof lie in supplements.
Knowing that you said that there's a lot of studies that are not being done to prove that these actually work. So you're at a handicap playing with naturopathic products.
Yeah, so as a consumer, you're at a handicap. And so across the street from my drugstore was a jewelry store. And in the jewelry store, he had a sign that said, if you don't know jewelry, get to know your jeweler. And I thought, that's a really cool thing, right? So one of the reasons that I decided to do what I do is because I do the studies. I'm in that arena. I do this stuff. I like to think that I bring, so everything that I deal with, pretty much everything I deal with, has clinical studies behind it in some degree or some degree that leads me to believe that it's bioactive and it's doing the job that we say it will do. And that's why I promote what I promote. So everything that I actually promote, there's enough scientific information behind it as a complete product to lead me to believe it's going to do the job that it's going to do. And that's why I promote it. Because I know that the rules and regulations, there's no protection for the consumer really in this area. And it's really hard to protect the consumer because once again, if you isolate something and you take it, like resveratrol, they said, and now they've actually come back and said, no, it's not the resveratrol in wine that keep the French from cardiovascular disease and all that kind of stuff. Because it would take like 180 bottles of wine a day to get enough resveratrol to have it. Now there's some people trying that.
They would be pickled.
They'd be pickled. They wouldn't really care if they had cardiovascular disease.
No, because they'd have liver failure.
They have liver failure. so that's the thing. Like, it's really hard. So get to know who it is you're dealing with. Get to know who they are and what they're about. And there are really good supplements on the market. You're not going to get them inexpensively.
No.
That's the thing. I just want you to know that you're not going to get good and inexpensive in the same sentence when it comes to supplements. It just can't happen. If they're inexpensive, they're likely ineffective.
Well, and when you think about it, the amount of the work and the science that goes into developing the products, the brilliant minds that are put on developing these products, everything that comes together to make this actually be effective and be absorbable and to contribute to your natural healthy diet. I mean, it is expensive.
It is.
When you learn about the Probita, that was 7 years in the making.
Yes.
Right?
And when you learn about this, the amino acid ratio in this, that's $50 million of research in that.
And that's a man's lifetime.
That's a man's lifetime. When you look at energy, the arginine and the GABA and things that are in this, there's been, arginine. Actually, there was a Nobel Prize given out for this discovery of the ability of arginine to sustain nitric oxide in your bloodstream. So that was very expensive to look at.
And the True Keto, how much research and time, was put into developing the True Keto by an amazing, doctor.
Yeah.
It's just absolutely spectacular when you really look at it. And, for me, I did as much research as I possibly could on the Probita when I was first injured, but I was in a lot of pain. And so I listened to the expert because I had a difficult time doing the research myself. And the information on the internet is just, there's so much of it that it's completely overwhelming. But when I sat down and I listened to Alan talking about collagen protein versus other types of protein and help me understand, it all made sense. So it's totally true. If you want to be able to make sense of everything that is going on when it comes to the nutritional world, I mean, most of us don't really even know where to look. But right. Alan being in the industry that he's in, and me being in the industry that I'm in, doing the research and obviously, doing a lot of the posting on the internet and stuff, he's spent many decades researching medical information and studies and everything because it's what he's had to do for his job. Because in order to be able to maintain your license, you have to have a certain amount of education every year, right?
And the other thing is, like, it's a network. Like, everybody, I have a network of people that I call, and like
that know what's going on, right, in this aspect.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I can't know everything, right? And that's one of my challenges with the white coat syndrome is we expect those people to know everything. It's impossible for everybody to know everything.
Absolutely.
It just can't happen. I can't know everything. You know, I've specialized in glutathione and I do know lots of stuff about other things, but I keep a network of people who are working in other areas. For instance, you know, last night I'm talking to one of the world experts in hemp research. Really, really smart guy. He's devoted his life to researching hemp. So why would I just call him. So I have a Rolodex of people as well. So
yeah.
This is the consumer protection branch here for people, is people that have a Rolodex of people who are involved in research, who are karmically involved in bringing great stuff to the market. They're not just bringing stuff out because it's a thing to do. And one of the challenges with the internet is if you start looking at website after website after website, you'll soon notice that many of the articles appear over and over and over and over again because there's something called copy and paste.
Everybody's borrowing.
Everybody's borrowing. So sometimes we don't even know where that research came from, and we use it, and then people set up their web page and then they surround it with ads because they're really more interested in ad revenue than they are in the information that they're providing. So anyway, so that's...
Hold on a second. Kim was just saying that we are so fortunate that you both are knowledgeable and share amazingly important health information. And I really appreciate that feedback, Kim, because Alan and I were both messaging each other back and forth last night talking about the next thing that we want to educate ourselves in. Because really, in all reality, this is our life pursuit, is learning as much as we possibly can to support the world becoming proactively healthy and living the best quality, not just quantity, but quality lifestyle that they possibly can, so you can be like Alan in your 60s going on the water slides with your grandkids.
Yeah, absolutely. Right? Absolutely.
Because they expect you to be able to do that because they don't understand at 4 years old that grandpa is too decrepit to go play on the water slides, right?
It's true.
They just want to play with you.
Yeah, and at 8, it's like, come on, Grandma, let's go to the water slides. And it's so good to be able to go to the water slides. I was so delighted today when the news came that Barbara Bush, 92-year-old Barbara Bush, former First Lady Barbara Bush, actually decided to turn down further medical treatment because it would be a burden on society and it'd be an interference in the enjoyment of her life as she knows it at this time. What a courageous woman. That is just so amazing that somebody would take that step. A public figure like that would take that step. But literally, at some point, there is going to be a revolution in this country where we actually are going to see the truth. We're going to see the truth that the demand for burden of proof in the medical profession is the demand for just the proof of one thing, not the whole thing. It's not telling the whole story. And we need the whole story to make good choices. And ultimately, we're going to see that medicine, as it's practiced today, is not about health care. It's about sickness management. It's about how many drugs can we keep you on to see you to the end of your life. It's about getting you on a gateway drug that opens the gateway so that we get you on another drug and another drug and another. That's the system right now. That's the system. And they'll use their burden of proof statistics to say this is the system this is why we trust in this. Meanwhile, if we look at the results of that system, we see an extremely sick society. When I read statistics like 58% of the women over the age of 40 in the United States have been or are on an antidepressant or some kind of other mood-altering drug, it's amazing. When I read that the average child in America under the age of 13 is on 5 medications, that's a terrible statistic. That is a tremendous over-reliance.
My child, who's being our cameraman right now, just dropped his jaw. He's behind there being our cameraman and playing on his little thing, right? And when he saw that, he all of a sudden lifted his head and went,
Yeah.
That is absolutely jaw-dropping.
It's bizarre. We just have this tremendous over-reliance instead of relying on our body to heal itself, instead of giving it what it needs, instead of putting our effort and energy and extending ourselves in that way. So I briefly want to go through my top supplements and the things I think that are really more critical than anything else. Number one is glutathione. So if you're going to do one supplement and you can only afford to do one supplement, if you're buying 6 supplements for, $60, buy one supplement for $60. It's going to do more good because we know this is going to work. The other ones, don't know.
Muscle test them.
You can I can see how they make you weak or strong for sure. So glutathione is number one. Well, water should be number one. Most people don't
The
drink.
ones that you have to pay for. Yeah, I know you guys can pay for water, but just supplements.
Yeah. So glutathione is one. The collagen protein and
when he says glutathione, just to reiterate,
yes,
we're talking about immunity.
we're talking about using amino acids. We're not talking about the other stuff. Capsules, injections, creams.
So this one right here.
The other is collagen protein. And so we know, physiologically, we stop circulating our glutathione. It's not that we stop producing it, we stop recycling glutathione. Around age 40, we stop recycling it, and we can see an increase in the aging process. When you're not recycling glutathione, your mitochondria start to disappear, they don't make as much energy, a whole bunch of things happen. We're more vulnerable to disease. So optimizing our glutathione throughout our life should be a choice. We also know that when you're in your 20s, you stop manufacturing collagen to a great extent. You only stimulate your body if you're injured. And that's why the older we are, generally speaking, the tougher time we have overcoming a break or a traumatic injury.
And everything breaks and injures so much easier.
Right, because we have to kick the collagen production into gear, and we just don't have the resources any longer. So giving our body the amino acids so that it can actually make collagen and keep it in the habit of using those amino acids to make collagen is just really makes sense. Keeping our cardiovascular function smooth, like using something like arginine, getting nitric oxide in there, which relaxes our cardiovascular system and allows for blood flow. And also, nitric oxide works in conjunction with glutathione in the utilization of protein in our body. Now, everything in our body, every movement, everything we do has a protein involved in it. Everything has a protein involved in it. We have 70 to 90,000 proteins in our body, depending on what we're doing. We'll make more proteins when we're doing different things. So protein is involved in our body. So using something like this that allows our body to better utilize protein just makes sense. So
I don't know if you saw where his hand was going.
Yeah, I was going right here. But these are things that support the body's natural mechanisms of repair and health. And there's other things. There's many other things we could talk about on this call that aren't in front of me. But there's people who need calcium, but you can't just take straight calcium. You need calcium, vitamin D, and vitamin K together in order to get it into your bones and not in your soft tissues and your cardiovascular system where it's going to give you damage. So, that's a topic for another day. But there are other supplements that people do need. What I want you to understand from today is that the burden of proof thing in the medical profession is just for one single identifiable thing. That's all that drug's been approved for. None of the other things it does in the body, we all find that out later. The huge clinical trial is done later when it's been out in the public for years, and every drug manufacturer actually puts aside a certain amount of money that is specifically for lawsuits that might arise when something appears that can be attributable to a side effect from a particular drug. So just keep that in mind, that every drug has its own kiddie fund, if you will, for lawsuits later on.
Can we go back really quickly to what you were talking about when it comes to the nutritionals and the small amount of nutritionals that you actually need to utilize to supplement your health. So first and foremost, do the best that you can to get everything out of your actual live food from the produce section. Go to a farmer's market if you can versus the grocery store to get your stuff, because typically the stuff that you're going to be getting at your farmer's markets is going to be more local produce, which means that the likelihood that it's been sprayed with chemicals and such is going to be much lower unless it's coming from a different country. So when it comes to your supplements, if you compare it down to just a few based on what it is that your body needs that's supporting what you're already eating, you can spend, you'll probably be spending equal to, if not significantly less than what you're already throwing away on nutritionals and supplements. Every time that I do this with my clients in the treatment room, they literally bring a duffel bag. I'm not kidding you, like a big duffel bag or gym bag full of supplements. I just did this with a client the other day and we went through all of her supplements, and pretty much I want to say 98% of the supplements that we pulled out when we did the muscle testing to find out whether they were going to contribute or not, we got that they were either not beneficial at all or they were under a 5 on a scale of 1 to 10 as to how beneficial they were. And I am telling you right now, when I use kinesiology to work with a client to find out what it is that their body is asking for, and if you guys don't know about kinesiology, it's been around for 60 years. It was developed by a psychologist, Dr. C.Ht. It's been around for an incredibly long time, and this is where the science of kinesiology now comes from and where kinesiologists come from. Right. So this is very respected and very well researched, the science of kinesiology, and yes, it works for every human on the planet because we all have a body. So when you utilize this, you can tell yourself what your body needs. And I am not happy unless my clients are responding through kinesiology at a 10 out of 10, telling themselves that this is what my body needs. And all of these products here, specifically the immunity and the collagen protein, I always pull these ones out because I know that they're a 10 out of 10. And every single client that I use kinesiology testing, they will respond so strongly that I can hang off of their arm when we're muscle testing to get the answers. So go through, and most of you probably have a huge cupboard of supplements that you spent obscene amounts of money on over the years, and most of it's probably expired because you're not even paying attention, because that's just how we consume. But pull all of those out, and you can take a look and see how much money you're probably spending. And if you really, really simplify the process and figure out exactly what you need and then get habitual about taking it, you will have a much greater chance of living a longer quality lifestyle than just consuming whatever the latest person is trying to sell to you. And allow yourself to be the expert. You're the expert, not anybody else. Find a few trusted people like us, obviously, to educate you, because we're a wealth of knowledge and we're ethical and we're moral and we're passionate about what we're talking to you about. We're not doing this from a standpoint of trying to make millions of dollars. We're doing this because we care about you. But I want you to understand. Yeah, exactly. We're doing this for free, you guys. We're literally doing this for free because we love you. But I also want you to understand that I don't want you to put me on a pedestal. I don't want you to put Alan on a pedestal. We're doing this to arm you, to educate you, so that you can put yourself on a pedestal from a place of knowledge and understanding and be armed to make the right decisions. This is where we're coming from. So utilize the power of kinesiology to communicate with your own body to find out what it needs, and allocate a couple of $100 a month to spend on the best of the best supplements to support what you're already doing in an amazing way by going to the produce section and getting really, really great products there that you're typically choosing, which would be organic and stuff like that, to feed to yourself and your children, right? Put that same effort into your supplements.
You know, I just want to tell people, the last customer, client, patient, whatever you want to call them in a drugstore, the last person I took care of, and it was really the reason I made the decision I was never going to dispense a drug again, was a really, really, he was just the gentlest, gentleman, very vulnerable individual. He was diagnosed with cancer, and he's an elderly person. So in Canada, he had some coverage. There was copay. His copay. So if you think supplements are expensive, his copay for 2 weeks of his cancer medication was $1,400. So 2 weeks later, he was going to come back into the drugstore and put down his credit card for another $1,400. And the thing about it is, here's the thing that really bothered me. His doctor told him not to take any supplements at all. And all those drugs that he was taking, the most expensive one only had life extension studies done that proved that it could extend your life maybe 2 to 2.5 weeks. And I'm looking at that and I went, I can't do this any longer. I have to tell people there's another way. I have to tell them that you can elevate your glutathione. I have to tell them that you can elevate your collagen protein. I have to tell them that there's other things that you can do. This is, in my mind, very unacceptable. I was going to say criminal, but it's very unacceptable because it's not criminal. It's very legal to do. But in my mind, it was just so rude to that gentleman. It was so disrespectful of him to ask him to be paying $1,400. That's his copay. $1,400 was his copay for that. And so then I talked to his son, who was his caregiver, and I actually, after I was out of the drugstore, I met him on the street one day, and I talked to him about using supplements, and he said the doctor was very specific. My dad is not to use any natural supplements at all. And so I just left it alone at that. But really, that's one of the driving forces for why we're doing what we're doing here, why I'm doing what I'm doing. There are better ways. There are great ways for you to aid your body to increase your quality of life, hopefully extend your life, but certainly give your body the option to heal itself in the most natural way it can. Here's the thing. If nature isn't doing it, then we're not going to do it now. I'm trying to think of a way to say this, but if we're not using what nature uses, then it's not going to happen the way nature wants it. That's just really, if we're not using the ingredients that nature uses to make the product, it's likely not going to result in what nature wanted us to have in the first place. Anyway.
So Kim was asking, can you share more about kinesiology testing and how to utilize it? And I'm absolutely happy to share. I've gone about this, we've done it in a video before, but I am more than happy to show it again. So kinesiology is essentially utilizing the muscles to speak to the subconscious mind, to discover as to whether the energy of something is going to contribute to your body in a positive way, or whether it's going to negate or take away from or weaken the muscles. And this was something that Dr. George Goodhart had actually discovered when he was working on the deltoid muscle of an athlete. And it was really interesting because he was in pain and the muscle was quite weak. And then he went and got something, and I can't remember specifically what it was, but he had this guy ingest something, and all of a sudden the muscles were instantly way stronger. And he was like, whoa.
What happened?
I don't even understand what's going on right now. So it put him on a path realizing that if there's certain things that are in the vicinity of a person, if they're holding it, if it's in their energy body, if they ingest it, immediately they can become stronger. There's a whole science around magnets and the use of magnets and how they actually contribute to us and help us make us stronger. It's really, really amazing. So there's 60 years worth of research and science backing up kinesiology. Dr. David R. Hawkins, he actually did more than 20 years worth of research all around the world, testing thousands and thousands of people, double-blind tests, and people from all walks of life, all ages and everything, and he developed the map of consciousness. So if you want to read a book and learn a little bit more about how this works and the background of it and stuff, you can read Power versus Force by Dr. David R. Hawkins. I would absolutely recommend this. He is a doctor. He is very respected and renowned. I'm going to tell you that he has been on Oprah, so he's obviously legit.
No, he's legit.
So yeah, he's amazing. If he was around today, he's no longer with us, but if he was around today, he'd be on Ellen. I can guarantee you.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah,
she would probably have a good chat with him.
Yeah.
So I want to just utilize this really quickly so that you can understand what I do in the treatment room with my clients to help them to be able to decide whether something is going to be beneficial or not. So you can use self-testing or you can test somebody else. So I'll quickly show you both so that you can do this at home with yourself, your husbands, your wives, your kids, to discover whether the stuff in your kitchen is beneficial. And you can muscle
Or whether
test.
your kids are lying.
Oh yeah, and if they dipped into the cookie jar, you can use muscle testing to find out whether they were telling the truth. When you tell a truth, you're going to be strong. When you tell a lie, you're going to be weak. So I'm going to get Alan to test on me because the last time I was testing on him, and since I'm the expert of the language of the mind and body, I could be cheating or something. I don't know. But Alan doesn't know what he's doing. So I'm going to get I'm going to get him to muscle test me so that you can see. So we're going to get what I call a baseline. So this is by me telling a truth and telling a lie to show that I am testable. I do this before I start with a client every session and sometimes mid-session so that they are seeing for themselves that the muscle testing is still working.
Right.
So if I put my arms straight out, and I say my name is Harmony, what he's going to do, see, he doesn't know what he's doing. So I want you guys to know this. I'm going to take my bracelet off really quickly. So this bone right here, if you push around this area, your arm is going to drop to save you from breaking your wrist, okay? So you want to push 2 fingers and you're going to push about mid lower arm, okay? And even pressure. So you're not just going to go like this and jerk the arm down. Obviously, it's a losing battle if you do it that way. So my name is Harmony. Push more. Okay, so he was using pretty good strength, so I'm pretty sure my name is Harmony. And my favorite other name is George, so my name is George.
Nope.
Okay, so I'm gonna be weak when I tell a lie. So let's do that again. My favorite color is purple. I hate purple. So that's basically how you would get a baseline to find out whether you're testable or not. Everybody is. There's only a couple of reasons why somebody wouldn't be. There's an energy blockage along the governing meridian, which would be around the neck, and you can release that. Or the person is dehydrated, okay? So those are the couple of reasons why a person might not be testable. So I just got plain old white sugar. And let's just see how we test holding white sugar. So I'm just gonna hold this. Yeah.
Why don't I close my eyes?
Okay.
And you pick something and test me with it that I don't even know what it is.
Ah, okay. Okay. That sounds like fun. Okay. So Alan's got his eyes closed.
So do I do my name is Alan?
Yeah, you have to go. You say your name is Alan.
Okay, my name is Alan.
Okay.
My name is Henrietta.
Okay, so he's weak. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to put something in his, we'll put something in his lap. So we're going to take this, and actually I'll just put it in his energy body. So he's not going to be able to feel it because it just has to be in his energy field. But this way you guys can see what it is and he can't. So you're going to resist. So on a scale of 1 to 10, is this a 10 out of 10? Okay, so I could hang off of his arm right now, but he doesn't know what it is that we just put in his energy field. So if we take this and we put this in his energy field, let's just see what happens. So this is in his energy field, resist, and he can't resist at all. Is this beneficial at all? Okay, so we're gonna take something else that we know is or isn't beneficial, and we're gonna put this in his energy body. Resist, is this a 10 out of 10? Perfect. So then we're going to take something else that is or isn't beneficial and put that in his energy body. Is this beneficial? Is it beneficial at all? No. All right, so you can open your eyes. So obviously the stuff that you were strong for, that you were a 10 out of 10 for, was the immunity and the pro beta. The other two things were just straight up household salt.
Oh.
The cheap household salt and white sugar. So you can do this with people at home, and you can do it with yourself, just really quickly to show you a couple of self-testing methods. So you can do links, and if I say my name is Harmony, it's going to be strong, and if I say my name is George, they're just going to disconnect. Okay? So Alan, you try.
My name's Alan. My name's Henrietta. Not Henrietta.
There you go. So the other way that you can do it is you create a circle, and you use the index finger and the middle finger and the thumb. And what you're going to do is you're going to put it through the circle and you're going to try to open the circle, okay? So if I say my name is Harmony, the link is strong. If I say my name is George, it breaks open, okay? So that's the way you can put stuff on your lap and stuff, and you can muscle test it that way. So try
like
it.
Henrietta. I don't know what I have against Henrietta, but...
So that's one. Those are a couple of methods that you can use. You can always use the sway test as well. So basically you're taking it and you're standing up and you're holding on to it. And you're either going to sway towards it if it's good for you, you're going to sway away from it if it's not good for you. I
do that in the grocery store all the time. I'll pick up fruit or whatever, and I just bring it into my energy field, and you can feel it right away. You become more sensitive over time, but even over the Muzak, it works with even with the Muzak. You bring it into your energy field, and if you just pause for a minute, you will know right away, like if it's good or if it isn't. It's really amazing.
It's really fun. My son and I do this when we go and we pick out produce. We like to go to the bookstore and muscle test books. I'll hold a book and he'll muscle test me. You can muscle test music. You can muscle test art. You can muscle test your friends. You can muscle test your husband. There's all sorts of, your kids can play hide and go seek with each other's stuff and use muscle testing. So I really appreciate, Kim, you asking me to give you a little bit of information about this. And I very much encourage you guys to read Dr. David R. Hawking's Power versus Force. It is an incredible book. And if you're more apt to listen to it, you can absolutely get it on Audible and listen to it as an audiobook. It is absolutely amazing science, and it is legit science. I want you guys to really understand that we live in a time right now where all of the stuff that religion and spirituality and stuff has been saying about the fact that we are literally all connected energetically, and that we are all vibing energy, and that we can affect each other, and the energy of one thing can affect the energy of another, is all now becoming science. And all the scientists are going, oh my gosh, spirituality and religion has been right this whole time, and we're now just starting to realize and prove it. So we're in this beautiful time where things are not woo juju anymore. They are proven scientific fact. So I get to play in a world where what I am doing is absolutely very much accepted. And I have so much respect for those of you who are a generation above me, because you guys are the ones who really were ushering in these ideas and these thought processes, making way for people from my generation to be able to play freely without judgment, and for these scientific facts to become scientific fact, because your generation were the ones who were asking the questions to make this fact.
Yeah.
You know, I did a tradesies with a psychologist, and she actually had to move from Texas down to California because if she tried to practice any type of spiritual practices or energy healing, she would lose her psychology license. They would rip it away from her, and she was totally terrified she was going to be burned at the stake.
Oh, unreal.
And this is in 2017. This was just last summer. And so she had to move more to a spiritual space, and California is a lot more open-minded when it comes to that kind of stuff. But she told me what it was like for her, you know, growing up and becoming a psychologist and practicing and stuff. And she said she very much felt like a fraud because she wasn't able to do the work to get herself to a really, really good, healthy, spiritual, mental, psychological space. And yet she was supposed to be an authority and diagnose people and help them, and she couldn't even help herself. So it's absolutely amazing that people like her, you know, were fighting the fight and were asking the questions. And so I just want to, you know, just put that out there, that I'm incredibly grateful for the generation before me who started the fight and made way for this information to now be scientific fact, so that we can play and we can talk about this and how it is incredibly important to go to the produce store, get really healthy, amazing foods, and then on top of that, really get the best of the best when it comes to supplements, because honoring your body is incredibly important, but also understanding that we are spirits having a physical experience, and honoring that as well, and taking care of our energy and our spirituality and our mental state and our psychology. All of it is incredibly important. If you guys haven't looked up heart math, This is an incredibly important institute that's actually doing all sorts of research about the heart. And there's this idea that the heart is actually talking to the brain and not vice versa. The heart is actually the main brain, and it's 100,000 times more powerful than the brain. It is so incredible, the knowledge and the science and the wisdom that is being discovered in our world today. And if you open your eyes to it and you watch some documentaries and do a little bit of research, we live in a spectacular time on this planet. And it's just a matter of plugging into the right people who are doing the right research, like Alan and I, like HeartMath and some other great facilities that are really cutting edge, that are bringing great knowledge to light.
Yep. Okay, Mr. Cameraman.
So, I really appreciate all of you guys for joining us. Thank you so much. We will see you guys again Monday next week, 6:30 p.m. And we thank you so much again, you guys.
And I'm going to see a bunch of people in Florida.
Oh yeah, and Alan's heading down to Florida to find out all that amazing research that's gone on surrounding the immunity and autism. So we're really, really excited about that.
Yeah.
So he will probably have some fantastic things to talk about next week. So please do join us so that we can give you guys some updates in regards to that. And if you guys want to share this video, it is open source. You can totally hit the share button and send it anywhere you want, okay? We want this knowledge to be shared everywhere. And I will be posting this on YouTube for people who aren't on Facebook as well. So again, thank you, lots of love, and we'll see you guys next week. Bye.
Bye.